Ted Cruz is booed off stage at the Republican convention after withholding his endorsement of Donald Trump. But does the rest of the party have a clear message about why Trump deserves to be elected? And what does it all mean for Trump's hopes of becoming US president? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Jane Dutton. US political conventions are usually seen as a coronation of a party's candidate for president, but any hope of projecting Republican unity at this year's convention was dashed when Ted Cruz refused to endorse his former rival, Donald Trump. It wasn't a complete surprise. Cruz has previously described him as utterly immoral, a pathological liar and a narcissist. But it certainly added to some of the chaos and controversy at the convention in Cleveland, Ohio. So here it is, the moment the convention realized Cruz isn't backing Trump.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
The crowd became increasingly hostile as it became clear there would be no endorsement. By the end of the speech, there were more boos than applause. And as Cruz came to a close, the official Republican nominee obliged the crowd by making an appearance on the sidelines. Well, clearly there's lots to discuss. Time now to bring in our guests. Joining us in Cleveland at the Convention Center, Bremmer, political scientist and president of the Eurasia Group. In Pittsburgh, Lenny McAllister, Republican strategist and candidate for Congress. And in London, Charlie Wolf, political commentator and former communications director of Republicans Abroad UK. Very warm welcome to all three of you. Charlie Wolf, I've been looking at this convention, highly entertaining in some parts, horrific in other parts. Has this been a success or a disaster?
Going back to the unity question, considering that the whole hall seemed to be yelling at Ted Cruz, they seem to be a bit of a unanimity there. I think Cruz is not too liked right now. But no, I don't think it's a disaster. This is not all that different of some conventions in the past. I mean, granted, they haven't been as raucous as this one. Donald Trump is an entertainer and a controversial guy. But also, this is where the platforms are worked out. This is what democracy is all about. It's a messy thing. You know, edicts don't come from on high, and people are allowed to disagree. So you'll get that. I mean, it wasn't quite Chicago 1968 and the Democrats, but yeah, it was a little raucous.
A little raucous. Lenny McAllister, as a Republican strategist, how do you view what's happened and what was the strategy behind the convention?
In 2016, completely not unexpected. With the candidate that you have on our side of the aisle, this convention going the way that it has not been completely a surprise at all. You look at some of the speakers that were selected, you look at the tone of what's been going on, you look at what happened on the convention floor in regards to the rules vote that happened just a couple of days ago. None of this is a surprise. At the same time, is this something that we should say happens all the time and this is part of democracy? No, because by this point in time, there should be more unity, there should be calm, there should be a focus, not just on we have to vote against Hillary Clinton, but also there should be more of a message of what we need to vote for. And I think that there have been far too many Republicans that are focused more on we hate Hillary than we love what we're going to do if we get the White House, if we control Capitol Hill, and if we continue to try to present policies that will make sense for more Americans. That has not been said enough at this convention. It's been extremely unfortunate, and in that regard, it has been a failure.
Bremmer, you've been sitting in that convention center. Talk us through what you saw and what you think about how it's played out.
Look, there's no question that the Republican elites and the establishment are not happy and comfortable with Trump. the Mike Pence pick as the vice presidential nominee assuages some, but not by much. It's still going to be very much a Trump show, and you know that most of the Republican foreign policy establishment is anti-Trump, and they're not here. The former Bush administration generally didn't show up. But when I go down and talk to the actual delegates, I would say it feels very differently. And that is not only enormous sentiment, which is unified, that Hillary Clinton is a criminal and should be locked away and certainly shouldn't be the next president, but also that Trump is the nominee and that's the person they should get behind. But it is an anti-establishment message. And one of the reasons, of course, that Hillary Clinton is so reviled is because she's the most establishment candidate that could be fielded by either Democrats or the Republicans. And that understandably makes many in the Republican establishment quite uncomfortable. And Ted Cruz, is trying to actually navigate that.
Lenny, you were nodding away there. I mean, what are your thoughts as far as the anti-establishment message is concerned? And why do you think they put Ted Cruz up there?
Well, I mean, Ian's correct. You look at Hillary Clinton, she is the most establishment candidate that you can get on either side of the aisle. And people forget that Bernie Sanders had a lot more momentum than he should have. He was not supposed to be what he was in this election cycle. He should have flamed out. He wasn't even a Democrat 18 months ago. So when you see what she ended up facing on that side of the aisle, and then the fact that you have the anti-establishment Donald Trump now as the Republican nominee for president, there is that animus coming from the Republican grassroots that says we are sick of the establishment. But guess what? Being sick of the establishment also brought them Marco Rubio over Charlie Crist, also brought them Ted Cruz, also brought them Rand Paul, also brought them Ben Carson. Half the field going into the 2016 cycle are anti-establishment candidates. So it's no surprise that the delegates are continuing that trend, and they would much rather beat Hillary Clinton than necessarily vote for Donald Trump. It's not lost that almost 60% of Republicans did not vote for Donald Trump when there was at least one other competitor in the field. That said, it's going to make the GOP have to really look at what the message is going to be for this race for the White House. Is it going to be, this is what we can do, or this is what we must stop Hillary from doing? And when you're always running negative, at some point in time in these political times, the American voter is going to step away from that candidacy. That's the danger that we run as Republicans. We have to make sure that we're offering something to people, not just trying to keep people away from the Hillary Clinton option.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Hillary a little bit more later, but before we leave Ted Cruz, Charlie Wolf, why do you think he behaved in that manner? I mean, do you think he picked up on the fact that the Republicans are so divided and he's setting up his stall for the following presidency? What was the game plan there?
That seems to be the conventional wisdom. I think there's that. And Ted Cruz is a man who, I think it's fair to say, highly principled. He knows the Constitution backwards and forwards. He's very much thinks as a conservative. But I think what he doesn't realize is the world is changing. I speak personally as a National Review commentary reading conservative, and I can see the flaws in some of Donald Trump's thinking or his policies. But at the same time, he seems to be the one that is viscerally connecting with the people, and that is more important. We can't do anything if we don't get into power. So if Trump's the man that can do that, I still think that there'll be moderating forces such as Mike Pence. I think his family will be a moderating force, others in Congress, Newt Gingrich, etc. But you got to get into power first. But unfortunately, in Ted Cruz, you have this purist, and as much as I admire it, it doesn't necessarily get you elected.
Right. We were talking a lot about, or you three were certainly talking a lot about Hillary Clinton, and clearly she's a factor, despite being the opposition. And despite the divisions among the Republican Party, they appear to be united on one thing at least, and that's the shared loathing of Hillary Clinton.
We cannot keep in place the people and the systems that have brought us to this point and that lie to us every single day about the threat. That is why every American should be terrified at the prospect of a Hillary Clinton presidency.
She will be appointing people who will have an effect on us for generations, and America may never recover from that.
Hillary Clinton, as a failure for ruining Libya and creating a nest for terrorist activity by ISIS, Answer me now. Is she guilty or not guilty?
Charlie, I mean, quite extraordinary what they were saying about Hillary Clinton, that guilty, not guilty. I mean, rather macabre spectacle there. I mean, is that what people want to hear?
I think it's more than what they want to hear. I think it's true. This is not the vast right-wing conspiracy. Here's a woman who got there because out of a sense of entitlement. The only thing she really has going for her is the fact that she was the wife of a president. She was a senator, and I'll give her some kudos on that, though I would probably disagree with her policies as a senator. She seemed to have served the people of New York very well. But I found it rather strange and somewhat comical when she left office and President Obama said this was the best Secretary of State we've ever had. Yet I don't think anybody can name the Hillary doctrine, and I would not put her anywhere near, say, Henry Kissinger or Marshall or a half dozen other names one could mention.
Ian, you were shaking your head there, so I want to know what it is that you disagree with, and also talk me through the tone. I mean, how base it was, the rhetoric. Why?
Well, there's not a lot of policy here, right? I mean, you know, I've been here for a couple days now, and I'll tell you that there's really been, you know, all visceral, all emotion. People are not here because they want to talk about, you know, sort of what U.S. foreign policy is going to look like over the next couple of years. That's a New York Times conversation. But I was shaking my head because while I think there are very good reasons for Hillary to have the, you know, sort of near historic negatives that she has, only Trump exceeds Hillary's negatives in the last several decades of presidential campaigns. But to say that the only thing that Hillary brings to the table is the fact that she was, you know, married to the president, I think is ludicrous. And, you know, she wasn't the best Secretary of State. She also wasn't the worst. If you wanted to understand, you know, what her views on foreign policy are, you probably want to look at her major speech on economic statecraft that came out in October after she became Secretary of State. It was about the pivot to Asia, which she was the architect of. It was about, you know, the rebalancing what was China's state capitalism. They're going to be the world's largest economy soon, but they don't support free markets. And also the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, because of Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, she now says she's against. And that's a problem for her, right? The inconsistency, the lack of authenticity, the lack of trust. But I mean, you know, I'm not a registered Democrat, but I'm a registered nothing. But I just want to make sure people understand that, you know, the idea that the Democrats have banded together around her, and also Bernie Sanders, who was not a Democrat, he's basically a socialist, but is strongly supporting her. I mean, she has been able to put together the Philadelphia Convention behind her in a way that Donald Trump, of course, has not. And that shows a level of political capability that she has and that she manifested in Congress when she was a senator. I just want to make sure that we set the record straight on that.
Lenny?
I don't agree with that, because she didn't put together the Philadelphia Convention because of her political capabilities. In fact, if her political capabilities were half of President Obama's, that race would have been over months ago. You know, they basically bullied Joe Biden out of the race. They made sure, and I made this joke multiple times, they locked Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker into a basement for a year to make sure they didn't even think about running for the presidency. And then they took four of the weakest candidates they can find on the Democratic side to run. Two of them just literally fell off the debate stage and basically suspended their candidacies right after the first debate, and she couldn't get rid of Bernie Sanders for months. And so when you look at what Hillary Clinton has been as a politician, it's completely different than what she may have been as a New York senator.
Okay,
right now,
Charlie,
she's running for the presidency.
Both of these gentlemen raised some interesting points here, but at the end of the day, I mean, she did work as Secretary of State. She does have some foreign policy experience, unlike Donald Trump.
Well, in a sense, that's what works against her. She does have some foreign policy experience, and it's not really good if you look at Benghazi. You know, just for one, the emails scandal again. This is not just some rhetoric from the vast right-wing conspiracy. This is, you know, a sense of. Well, I just don't know how someone could not understand why you don't keep your own State Department emails on a private server where you're exposing state secrets to the Chinese, the Russians, and God knows who else.
Okay, but Charlie, it's easy to
managements...
criticize her foreign policy stance. What is Donald Trump's foreign policy stance? We have no idea.
Well, here's the difference. Well, first off, again, you know, I'll look back to her foreign policy speech recently. There was no foreign policy in it. It was just slating Trump. Trump, at least, is a businessman. Trump is in a free market is essentially amoral. He will know how to sit down and get a group of people around him and how to get a debate going and how to make decisions. This is what he's done, granted, in the real estate development sector, but still, that's a skill
I mean,
that
where
works in other
is
places.
the policy? You say he's a good businessman, but where is the policy? I mean, we know what he's not going to do. We know what his attitude is when it comes to Muslims. We know what his attitude is when it comes to China. But what is his foreign policy? What is he going to do? Is it going to be an inward-looking United States under him, or is he going to open up?
I don't think it is. I mean, one policy that I gather that, again, picks up with the people, and I know that's not what you call deep policy, but he seems to be more of an America first as opposed to an apologist, as we've had from the Obama administration. He is happy, I think, to project power, and there's nothing wrong. There's no guilt trip over the projection of power.
Okay,
Some
let's
of
bring
it
in.
is, I will grant you, is a bit,
Ian's been dying to say something. Ian?
Well, I'm not dying, believe me, but again, I think that there are a
Enthusiastic
lot of ways
rather.
to criticize Hillary Clinton.
I'm picking up on the tabloid
There are a
thing.
lot of ways to criticize Hillary Clinton on foreign. A lot of ways to criticize Hillary Clinton on foreign policy. It wouldn't be Benghazi. It certainly wouldn't be the email scandal, which was very stupid and mishandled, but not foreign policy. You want to hit her on foreign policy, talk about the fact that she supported going into Libya and then didn't have a policy of how to actually build it afterwards. Talk about Russia and the rebalance with Russia, the reset, which failed. So let's be clear. There are things that Asia policy under Hillary was actually quite good. Middle East policy under Hillary was actually quite bad. But Trump does have foreign policy. And I think that the New York Times does a real disservice by making it sound like, the fact that he believes that American allies are free riding and that the U.S. doesn't need to redress that, and making it sound like he's a buffoon as a consequence. Look, there are a lot of Americans that believe that they've gotten very little out of American allies and America's leadership in the global system over the course of the past 30, 40 years, in the same way that many Brits felt they got very little out of the EU. Now, it is true that the U.S. overall will suffer under a Trump presidency from a foreign policy perspective, but the average American wanting to vote for Trump does not care because they do not believe that they would gain anything from that system, and they're right. That's why they're anti-NAFTA. That's why they're anti-free trade. They don't think they benefit. So, I mean, there is a very serious throw the bums out and throw the globalizing bums with all of their support for alliances and every other country first. America first is a very appropriate term for Trump's policy because he's not an isolationist, but he is a unilateralist. Trump is actually much more similar to the Chinese in the way they think about foreign policy. Very narrow. It's not about trying to export Chinese values. It's much more about national security and commercial interest as China defines it and projecting that out to get the best possible deals, quid pro quos around the world. If you look at Xi Jinping as president today of China, and you look at Donald Trump running for presidency of from the Republican Party, they're actually very similar in their orientation towards the rest of the world.
Okay, but you know what? Voters don't see that. Let me just read a poll to you, Lenny. The Pew Research Center found that 45% of Republicans and 41% of Democrats see the other party as a threat to the nation's well-being. Those are not good figures, are they?
No, they're not. And one of the things that we have to do, I know I'm doing that with my race here in Western Pennsylvania, is we also have to come to the table in November as unifiers. If you're not looking to be a unifier in your race, especially after what we've been going through with the police shootings and the Black Lives Matter protest and the economic numbers that are coming out and the terrorism attacks around the world and the aggression of the Chinese in the South China Sea and what's going on with the Iranians, what's been going on with the Russians, we have tension all across the world. And the person that's going to occupy the White House, the people that are going to go to Capitol Hill, must also come to the table. Yes, you can sit there and say America first, and I do believe that we have to make sure we take care of our country first economically. From a military perspective, we have to ensure safety and stability, but we also have to unify so that people believe that we're all Americans again, so that we're not looking at each other as the enemy, where you now have domestic enemies, communities versus police, or Democrats versus Republicans, as well as enemies overseas, as well as enemies that we can't even identify yet or may come into the nation by way of our broken immigration system.
Okay,
These are the challenges
Lenny, I'm
that we need to be speaking about.
As a black man, I mean, and I think I'm quoting The Guardian here. Obviously, we're all worried about plagiarism at the moment. But have the Republican Party become a vehicle for white power? I mean, are we seeing more white power in the White House under the Republicans? And will it be a more misogynist era that we're looking at?
White power as in white power from the White House, I don't know if we're talking about that. are people taking the conservative message and hijacking it for their own means. I've said this before, yes, that's on the rise, but this is not anything new. It's like the Ku Klux Klan calling themselves Christians. If there was anything Christian about the Ku Klux Klan, they could not hang other Christians in the South, and they did that for 100 and some odd years. So it's not as though this is a new dynamic. It's an unfortunate dynamic that we're seeing, just the same with the black nationalists, that we're trying to shoot police, including black police officers in Dallas and in Baton Rouge. People are tense, and that tense nature of what we're seeing around the country and around the world is spilling over into violence. That's the reason why those that are going into elected office, whether it's Congress like here in Western Pennsylvania or the White House, we not only have to have policies that make sense for our citizens, but we also have to understand our role as global leaders, which is why we can't take the same exact approaches that the Chinese may take, because we are the global force for good around the world. It doesn't mean we have to take care of everybody first and then us, but it does mean that we have a very unique historical obligation that we must be mindful of every single day.
I mean, it sounds like that you're talking about people want to see change, and maybe, Charlie, you can talk us through what we saw at the convention again, the fact that there were no big names coming out in support of Donald Trump, whereas when you look at the Democratic conference, which is coming up in Philadelphia, you've got the big hitters there, the Clintons and the Obamas. Is this because people want to see a change in representation? They don't want to see the old school, the old political establishment.
No,
is that what's going on here?
I think that's what it is. They really don't want to see, and it's been, and I say as a Republican, it's been a pox on both their houses. Mr. Obama has got a long laundry list I could go through, but you look at the Congress. The Republicans said they were going to stop Obamacare. They were going to stop. The others can probably name policies quicker than I can sitting here in London, and nothing was really happening. So this is why, the fact that George Bush, who I happen to respect and admire, isn't coming, it doesn't matter to these people. They don't want to see George Bush. They would rather see, actually, I think they'd rather see Ivanka Trump, who I think is going to be an asset to him, as someone who understands millennials. She's, a beautiful young lady. She's a wife, a mother, and, she can hit that softer side and understand the millennial issues of climate change and what have you, conservation. So she'll be a greater asset than having John McCain or George W. or H.W. Bush showing up at a convention, and surely better than Clint Eastwood in an empty chair.
Ian, we've got to look forward to November now. What do you think we are going to see? Will Donald Trump be able to get the money in his coffers that he so desperately needs? What's he going to pull out of his hat now, do you think?
Well, clearly the decision to go with Mike Pence, who is one of these, establishment Republican types, not someone who's really going to rile up the Trump supporters. The yin and yang there is he does make traditional Republican establishment more comfortable, and he will make Republican donors more comfortable. Now, so far, the chemistry between these two has not been significant. They don't know each other very well. Their policies are misaligned on most issues: Iraq, trade, lesbian, gay, bisexuality, that kind of thing. But that should lead to some support for building up more of a campaign base. But the big issue here is that the anti-establishment support for Trump is really on one side of the aisle only. I mean, Bernie Sanders, in a full-throated way, has endorsed Hillary Clinton, and you'll see that again on display in Philadelphia next week. Elizabeth Warren, same thing. They've campaigned effectively together. About 85% of Sanders voters now say that they will vote for Hillary Clinton. And this is the problem that Trump has, right, is that unlike in Britain, the U.S. is not a white electorate, but the GOP is a pretty increasingly white party. Only 0.7% of the delegates on the floor are actually black here in Cleveland. And, last week there was a poll in Pennsylvania for the Wall Street Journal in Ohio, and 0% of black voters in those polls said they were going to support Trump. Look, 1% of Americans think Rhode Island is a planet. So, I mean, the fact that you say 0% of anything means that your message must really resonate to turn them off. So I think there's a reason why Trump is the underdog right now. But let's also be clear that he has surprised the commentators every single step of the way. He surprised 16 other Republicans that were running for office, some of whom were incompetent, but many of whom had been through this rodeo many times before. And he didn't beat them, he destroyed them. So, I mean, I do think that Hillary has reason to worry, and they shouldn't be glib and confident at this point.
All right. Great talking to all three of you. Thank you so much, Ian Bremmer, Lenny McAllister, and Charlie Wolf. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is at AJ Inside Story. Mine's at Jane Dutton. So for me, Jane, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching. Bye.